I'm waiting for us to come back. I think we have 4 people or 5. Once we have complete and continue. Okay, remaining one more person. Okay, I think I should just continue so that we can save time. Okay, we might not be spending the whole 40 minutes in this session. Maybe we'll just do 30 minutes and stop because it's already 8 o'clock and some of us need to rest and some people are going to work. Wow. Okay, so permission to continue.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So I've mentioned encapsulation, I've mentioned abstraction. So now the next one is what? Inheritance. So what is inheritance? Inheritance is a situation whereby an object gets some properties from the parent, maybe a class. For example, when you give birth to a child, the child will definitely have some similarities that will look like the father or the mother. Okay, so that's the concept of inheritance. So whenever you are trying to create an object, this is your child, one way or the other, the child can take some similarities from the parents, maybe some behaviors apart from the look, apart from the physical look. Some of the behaviors of the parents, the child can pick it up. So that's just the concept of inheritance. So also in programming, we might decide to create some classes and they will have some super classes or some base classes that they are inheriting their properties. Okay, so that is all about inheritance. And the last one is polymorphism. Polymorphism is, let's just take it as, for example, someone that adds two double lives, that is living a double life. In when he's among his friends, maybe he's an alcoholic, he does a lot of things, but when when he comes home to his parents' house, he's so gentle and decides to, everybody sees him as a good boy at home. But when he goes out there, he's something else. You know, understand? So that's polymorphism. That is, he has the ability to show different characters and exhibit different attributes. Let's put it that way. Okay, so there's a concept called method overloading in programming, which really explains polymorphism. That is, someone bearing the same name but can have different parameters. Okay, so maybe at home they call me Da Silva or they call me Ayodeji, but when I get to my friends, they call me King Kong or whatever name they call. So that means I'm the same person, but I can have different attributes, or I can exist in different forms. Okay, so that's it. So with this explanation now, I think we have like 10% or 20% explanation to what an object-oriented programming is. And so most of your backend programming languages, your Java, your Python, your C#, all of them, they are all OOP inclined. They call them object-oriented programs. So they have all these characteristics. The same thing I'm talking about here in Java, when you do Python on Wednesday, it's there. When you do, what's it called? All these other programming languages, it is there. Okay. I remember we're also in CSS. When we were talking about CSS, we talked about inheritance. You remember? Okay, I'm not saying that is object-oriented. We have some concepts similar in there. Okay, so let's now look at, based on this explanation I've given us, I talked about abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and what? Inheritance. There are other ones. We have interfaces, there are other ones, but these are the major ones that we need to look at. So now let's go into the main work, class, object, constructor, and method, and this is where we are going to end. Okay, this is not going to be discussion. I'm not going to follow this slide. We are just going to, let's just glance through it. Let me see what is the Java classes, reference type, blah, blah, blah. Okay, method overloading. Yeah, we end at method overloading. Okay, so let's just, it's going to be practical. So I'm going to show you, I don't think I'm looking at the slide anymore. So we are going to go into the main work. So like I said, if at this point, whatever I explained, if you don't understand, you might decide to go online and understand more. And if you don't understand online, you can come for more training to understand more. If you don't understand after that, then just I would advise you forget about programming, because there's no way you can escape programming in real life, in working for organization or working for yourself in programming, that you will not do these things I want to mention. You always create classes, you always define objects, you always create constructors, you always work with methods and all that. So please, this is very important. So at every point in time, if you don't understand anything, please call me back. Okay? So now this is going to be the last class in fundamentals of Java. Remember, like I said, if we are having a proper training, because Java is going to be like 3 months training, we are going to go step by step in depth. There will be more explanations, more documentations, more videos to watch and all that. But we are trying to crash everything, because the next class we're going to have, we're going to be talking about Spring Boot and how to create APIs with Spring Boot. That's why the topic is Java Fundamentals and Introduction to Spring Boot. So, which is what most people work with today. People creating microservices, they use Spring Boot in Java. Okay, so that's about that. So, what is a class? I will just give you my own definition, because the textbook or the slide has its own definition, but let me give you my own definition. Just see a class like, I'll use human as a class, okay? If human is a class, the human race, we have gender, right? And the gender is both male and female. So the human is like a container from which man and woman comes out. Okay, so let's take it like that. Okay, so but in programming, it is referred to as what? Let's see what the slide says. Okay, it says classes provide structure for describing and creating objects. Okay, so as a beginner, sometimes when you read all these things, it gets you more confused, because you'll be saying, okay, classes describe and creating objects. What is object? This one has started again, you know. So, but just take my definition for it, you know. So it's what it does is that for us to be able to create classes and all that, it helps us to imbibe all the attributes of OOP that I mentioned, okay? And then it allows us to be able to create and define some properties for our objects. So in this case now, we have a class called human, and then an object, a man, can come out of human, a woman can come out of it. So that's the definition of a class. That's what I'll give as the definition of a class. And then from when you look at how do you differentiate human being from an animal, let's say goat. Okay, so there are some vivid characteristics that is different. Okay, although we both have one head. I've never seen a goat that has 2 heads before. Okay, we have one head. So goat too has one head, that's a similarity. We have 2 hands and 2 legs. Goats, I don't know, they have 4 legs. They don't have hands. I don't know whether we'll count that as hands. They have 4 legs. So you can see the similarities now. So so when you instantiate an object from a class, that is, when you see a human being and you see a man, you know that this is human being, right? Because it has the attributes that the class human should have. And it does not have the attribute that the class animals should have. Okay, so that's enough explanation. So let's create a class. So how do we start? Are we together? Does anybody have a question there before I move on? Oh, I've been talking to myself since.
I'm okay.
No, I'm following. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. All right, thank you. So to create a class, all you have to do is come to your, remember when we created this project, simple calculator, come to your package, right click on your package and click on new. Okay, there's a question. You don't understand, IJ. Do you want to say something? Did you start this class with us or you just joined?
I just joined. I understand.
Okay, you understand, but you said no.
Yeah.
What does no mean?
As in no, as in I'm following you.
Okay.
When you
Okay.
ask the question.
Okay, thank you. All right. So to start, I'll create a class by saying new, and you select Java. For anybody not using IntelliJ, it will be difficult for me to go to rep ELT and do this, but let's just try and follow. Maybe we can copy the code and paste it there. So I want to create a class of human being. Remember naming your class. We said class name must always start with what? Capital letter. Okay. This is how you do it. What if there are two different words, you join them together like this. Make sure the next word is also starting with capital letter. Or if you want to have it this way, it's your choice, but the first letter must be what? Capital letter. And the name of the class must be equal to the name of the file. Okay, so you can see you can define and create other things, not only a class, but for now it's a class we want to declare. So I'll say class human being. I double click it, it creates the class for me automatically. Put it in this package. Okay, so now I said there are some things that are peculiar to human. One, human have one head, right? So I would say, how many head do we have? Integer head. Okay. Can you see how I'm saying? I said one head, so I'm declaring the head as integer, not float. I don't have 1.5 head. I don't have, my head is not a string, it's one. Okay. So we have how many legs? 2 legs. I put legs. I'm just trying to use this real life scenario to explain what a class is. Okay. We said there's gender, right? Either male or female. Okay. So those are should I put gender? Yes, humans, we have gender. So let's just use gender. Gender should be a what? String. Later you realize that it could be something else. So note, when I'm declaring all these things, these are like the features, right, of human. We call them fields. We call them what? Fields. In Java, they are called fields. So, or in a class, okay? We call them fields. So a class always have fields, or you call them properties, okay? So these are the ones that I have identified right now. There are more. Okay, you can say ant. Who can tell me another feature of human beings? Nobody's telling me. Okay. All right, so now, having done this, we have declared the attributes or fields of a class. If you go to your slide, it mentions something like that, I'm sure, somewhere. Yes, it says a class adds what? Fields, where we store object state. This is more confusing, but just follow me, okay? We have them. These are the fields, which are the attributes or what attributes of a class, human, okay? So now the next one is what we call a constructor. When you give birth to a child, how do you know that this child that you give birth to is human or it's something else? God forbid, we've heard stories of people that give birth to something else that is not human, okay? So that means that when you give birth to a child, the child must have one head, 2 hands, 2 legs, and the child should be normal, hopefully. That is what we call a constructor, okay? So in the womb, when the child is growing, he is already building. By default, by the time it's coming out, it's developing. By default, by the time it's coming out, it already has some things already defined. So that's what we call constructor. So that means when you are creating a class, there are some things you want to set initially, so that when you are creating an object from that class, it already has those properties. For example, when you, like I just said, human being, when you want to give birth to a child, by the time the child is coming out, it already have one head, two hands, and two legs, blah, 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 and it's either male or female. So that's what we call a constructor in a class. So what is a constructor? A constructor starts with public, then it must have the same name as the class, okay? And you can now set whatever you want to set into it. So now, for example, we said for the child, it must have head. So the head must be what? 1. So we can start setting it now. We say legs must be what? 2. And we say gender. Here you can determine, okay?
Male or female.
Yeah, male or female. But if you put male now, then that means when you are giving birth, you always give birth to male, you know. So I don't want to do that now. I might remove that later. But let's just fill the other ones and say, let's say, and 2. Okay. So, but I can do this and say int. That means there's an external force that is controlling who is a male and who is a female. Okay, when we are creating a child or a human. Okay, so that external force, will name it, is giving us the gender. Okay, so the person is giving us the gender. So that whatever gender the person gives us, we'll now say this dot sorry, you see this dot gender equals to gender. Okay, so it's saying gender is a string and you are passing what? An integer. So we'll put a string here. Okay, all right, so that is it. So now this is kind of tricky. Let me explain. This means that this class, okay, so now this gender is referring to this gender up here. Can we all see? Right? So that is the property of the human class, right? So this is the gender, but this gender here is coming from outside. Maybe it's God or whoever is determining, maybe it's the man or the female, the X and Y chromosome, like what they said, they determine the gender of the child. So now that means the X chromosome or the Y chromosome is coming from somewhere else and we want to put it into the child. Do you understand? That's why we have this to separate the gender of the child in the womb and whatever gender the X chromosome is giving it or something. Do you understand? Are we following?
Yeah, we do.
Take the silence as okay. So this is what they call a constructor. So if you go to the file, you have what they call a constructor, executable code that is creation to set the initial state. Okay, that's why most people, when they try to read programming themselves, all this English, it's confusing. Okay, except you are a professor, you understand it. But sometimes we need someone to break it down like this so that we can get it. So this is a constructor. What it's doing is just that initially when you are creating the class or creating an object from the class, it's already setting some properties for us. So that when the object comes out, the object already have those properties. Okay, so that is fine. Now, one more thing we call methods. Okay, so in a class we have fields, we have constructor, and we have methods. What's the method? Or they call it function. A method is what the class can do. For example, if I have a method, get and or set, okay, let me have teeth. Teeth is what? Okay, so I say teeth. So I want to have a method, I'll call it void, I can call it int set teeth. Okay, So by default, we know that when you give birth to a child, it should not have teeth, right? So, but I want to do, what I want to do is that teeth, how do we do this again? Plus equals to 1, okay. Okay, so now return. I have a return. This is what we call a method. So now I want to do that. Once the child comes out, which is our object, after year 1, we want to give it 1 teeth. After year 2, we want to give him 2 teeth, and so on and so forth. So until he becomes a fully grown man and he has 32 teeth. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do here. So now I'm setting a method, which is a method that says set the object's teeth. Okay, so that every time I call set teeth, it increases the teeth by 1. It increases to 1. The next time I call it, increases to 2. Next time I call it, increases to 3. Do we understand now? Okay, so if we understand, I'll end here. So I have defined what a class is. I have defined what a constructor is. And I have defined what a method is. Okay, so I can define other methods and say maybe ants. Maybe, God forbid, someone lost his arm or whatever, so we can reduce 1 arm and it becomes human with 1 hand. Or maybe something, he has a growth and he has 4 hands, like all these graphics games player in Mortal Kombat or something. Okay, so we can do anything, but since I'm just using this as an example so that we can understand what classes and objects and constructor really is, we really need to stop here. Okay, so now how do we now use this class? Now we have defined our class. How do we use it? Let's go to calculate. Remember our main method, right? So all these ones, let me create a private a function to collect all this test objects. So that I can have a clean place to work, because we might need this code later on. Okay, so we have a clean place. Now, let's see. So now we have created human. Now we want to define 2 objects, a male and a female, out of the human, right? So to do that, we call it instantiating an object. So by definition, what is an object? An object is an instance of a class. That's the English people use every time. Then I will be saying, okay, what does instance mean? Do you understand? So it means that I want to bring out a child from the womb of a woman. And then when we are bringing out the child already has 1 head, 2 hands, 2 legs, blah, 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 and the other things that we have defined in that class of the woman. Okay? So to do that, I'll just say human being. That's the name of the class. I'll say child. That's the name of the child we're bringing out, equals to new. So it's the new keyword that helps us to do what? To do the instantiation. Sorry, my English is bad. Okay, so that is what helps us to do that. Now remember that when we are defining this human being constructor, let me go back. This human being here is not the same thing as human being here. Please, let's note. This is the name of a class. When you do this, it goes, for those of you using IntelliJ, when you click on something and you press control, your control button on the keyboard, your control key down, and you click on it like this, it takes you to where the value is defined. So this one is referring to the name of the class. But this one is not a name of a class. It is the constructor. You can see when I type this one, I did not put bracket in front. When I'm typing this one, I put brackets. So it's a constructor. That is, I'm trying to create a child from the woman or the human, and I need to set some constructors. I need to set some values for him. Okay, so this is where I determine whether it's going to be a man or a woman, because this one is expecting me to pass something, the gender. Okay, so in this place, I'll put, this is where I determine the destiny of the child. I say it's a male. Okay, you can see now I've defined this. So child becomes an object. This is an instance of this class now. Child is an instance of what? This class. Okay, so I can decide to create another, let's call this male child. Now, when you are naming your object, always start with lowercase. We call it camel case. You start with lowercase. The first word is lowercase, and the next one is what? Uppercase. As in the next word starts with uppercase, while the other one. So exactly like this. Let me know not be too much. Okay, then the next one is female child. So I want to be able to have male and female. Okay, so I have two children, male and female. These are my objects that I've created. Okay, so now I can say male child dot, you can see it has teeth, it has gender, it has hands, it has legs and head. Can you see now? Okay, so I can say dot teeth. Did we define anything for the teeth? Here. Can we see we did not define anything in the constructor? Hello?
Yes, nothing defined yet.
Yeah, okay. So let's go on. So I can have it like that, or I say male child. Let me comment this out. Male child dot maybe gender. I know the gender already. Let me get the answer. So I'll print this out and say system dot out dot print line. So I want to print the hand of the male child out. That's all I want to do. So remember, what is the value of the hand that I set? 2. So once I print it out, I should get a 2 automatically. Just by creating this object, I should get 2 as the hand, because it has inherited the properties of this what? The human class. And so whatever value we have set in the constructor would come out. So let's see that in action. Can you see 2 here? Okay. So for me to format it, I can use, there's a code called string.format. String.format. It enables you to be able to format your output. So I can say and equals to, you pass your format descriptor and you put a comma, then you pass this guy into it. So we have to be watch the syntax very well so we don't make mistake. Okay, so string.format would give me and is equals to, then it will put the value there. So let's watch here and see what comes up. Okay, and is equals to 2. Okay, so now that means the male child has the number of hands he has is 2. So let's check the number of hands that the female child would have. Would they be the same? Nobody knows.
Yes, they have the same.
Yes, because they are what?
Yeah, they are human.
Yes, and they are from the same class.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah.
Now let me try something. Let's see if it will work. I have 10 more minutes and we have to end this. Let's be fast. It goes to 4. Okay, so remember, by default, they have, both of them have 2 hands. Let's see when I change the hand to 4. Let's see what it brings out for us. Can you see? So what we are saying now is that these properties, although they are inherited from the human class, we can modify them, right? And change them. So they can have their own inherited properties, and we can modify those properties along the way. Now, the male child is still having 2 hands, and this female child has decided to have 4 hands. Okay, so that's just an example, but this is not where I'm going really. Now, there's something they call reference type and value type. If you recall that when we were talking about arrays, wow, it's disappeared. And I put something like this, the cells. Or when we're talking about variables, I said I can have a value here, 10, I can have 20 here, and 30. And I named this place A variable, this one B variable, C variable. Okay, so what we said is that anytime I'm using this variable A, it will pick out this 10 and use. But in between my program, if I say A is equals to 35, then it removes this 10 from here and turn it to what? 35. Okay, so those are what we call value type. It's the value inside this place that we are dealing with. But in a class is a reference type. Okay, so for example, if we create a class, an object of a class, we call it A, and create another object and we call it B. Okay, so let's say B is pointing to this, to 30, and A is pointing to 20. In our program, if we decide to say A equals B, automatically both A and B will now be pointing to what? Sorry, A equals B. Automatically both A and B will now be pointing to 30 because we have assigned the reference of what? Of 30 into A, which is 20 before. So it's not as if it's going to come to A and put 30 here. No, but both of them are going to point to the same reference. So that's different between a class, which is a reference type, and all these are integer, string, and all that, which are value type. In case you see it somewhere else, so you should know the difference. I just decided to explain that. Okay, so that's very important. So now, let's say for example, remember what I've done. I've changed female to 4 hands, right? So in between my program, I decided to say I want to turn this male child into a female child. Before I do anything, who knows how many hands will now come out as the male child?
Four.
I need your response. You say 4, right?
Yeah.
Because the female has 4, right? But remember,
Yes.
the male had 2 before. But now we are putting the reference of the female into the male. So let's now see what this output will give us. Even me, I'm not sure myself. Just kidding, don't worry. Thank you very much. So now you understand the concept of reference type, right? So when you assign a class to another class, instead of it to go and override the value, what you just do is that both of them will just be pointing to the same reference, which is what I explained to you. Okay, so that part is somewhere in the I think there's something. Yes, they try to explain what is happening here. Okay, so let me see what else I'm supposed to talk about. Okay, access modifier. Let's quickly do that. So this is very simple. This is just what we do in programming, because now, if you see what I shared before, because both of them are now pointing to the same thing, that means that this place, this memory space is now free. And so both of them can be using this. So this enables our application to work faster because we have more space to assign something else to, you know. So all these things are very important when you are programming. They are all very important. Okay, so we have 5 minutes more, but I'll try to explain one more thing. So there's something they call access modifiers. Okay, like let's go back to our class. we just set these guys as integers. Oh, I didn't talk about one thing. So if I should call at any point in time, I should say male child dot set teeth, and somewhere I'm printing the teeth out. I'm printing male child dot teeth. So calling this set teeth, what do you think it will do? Remember what it's doing. It should increase the number of teeth, right? Okay, so let's go back. Before we increase the number of teeth, we want to print it first. I'll say teeth, male teeth. Let's print it, then after, let's see what it will be. Okay. Can you see? At this point, because when we created the, oh, I used female there, and I increased male teeth. Sorry, I'm supposed to use female. Let's do for the female child. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, this is it. Although I'm doing female, let me change it to female. So it's good. Okay, so initially when we created the female child, he has no teeth. That's why you are seeing 0 teeth, because when you look at the class where we defined, there was no teeth defined in the constructor, right? But meanwhile, in the program, when we now do set teeth, we are calling the method. This is the method, and we are saying the method increase the number of teeth to 1. Okay, so by the time we now call the female child teeth here, it has become what? 1. So if you call it again, it becomes 2. If you call it again, it becomes 3, 4, 5, and 6, and so on and so forth. So we should know that method performs what a particular set of code and function and all that. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is access modifiers. So all these items now, you can see what I did here, which is a very bad thing to do in programming. I changed the value of the hands to 4 directly. So in programming, we don't allow people to just change the values of our class or our fields directly. So in order for us to protect it, we make them private. That's the access. That means nobody can access it except in this class. So it can only be accessed in this class. So we set it to private. Okay. So once we set all of them to private, I'm sure outside you see errors. Okay, because I can't see them again. If you do dots, you can't see them again. You can only see the public values. You can't see the private values. Okay. So now, for us to grant access to it, we need to have what we call a getter setter. Okay. So what does a getter setter does? A getter setter helps us to, when you want to fetch the value, we call the get value. And when we want to set it, we call the set value. This is where I'm going to end today. So for example, anytime I want to get the hand, I would say int get hand. You can see it's already giving me options. And what do I do inside? I just return this dot hand. This dot hand. So this is how to get hands anytime I want to get it, but I will now make this public because that is what should be interacted with. Okay, and then if I want to set the value, I'll do set hand, and then I try to get whatever you are setting. Let's say you are setting it to be, so I'll say return this dot and So I'm setting the ant.